Welcome in everyone. You're here to learn about PVE in Valkyrie, so let's go over it. The major topics we'll be going over today are 10-star Connect battles, EX battles, Heroic Wander, the Tower of Toxicity, and Heinous difficulty battles. Okay, let's start with Tower of Toxicity since it's pretty simple to cover. As of September 2023, there's 22 floors in TOT, and whatever the highest floor that you are able to clear, you receive all the rewards for every floor previous to that as well. So this is not a mode where you're going in and clearing every floor every week. You just go in and do your one clear of the highest TOT floor that you can do or can get carried in. And that's all you need to do every week. Okay, we'll go over the help and formulate a good guide by these tips. So TOT is soloable, but it's intended for 3 players. You either need to have really broken units or really broken gears or both to be soloing the higher floors. The tower is always available and resets every Monday. Normally Connect bosses have a limit break bar, but here they have a special knockdown gauge. It works kind of the same, but kind of not. There's a different stat called knockdown or KND. Some specialty gears have it, but otherwise you're getting your base knockdown from investments in your expertise page with the Mark of Supremacy currency. During these fights, while you're depleting the knockdown gauge, normal damage and skill procs that do damage are going to do little to no damage. Actually, to the health bar, they will deal knockdown damage. Once the knockdown bar has been depleted, then all of your regular abilities will become effective and deal damage. So in general, knockdown is a new stat similar to attack or mattack, but it's on a different scale, and you need it to deplete the knockdown gauge for these Tower of Toxicity bosses. You can see the recommended knockdown for bosses here and by this number. For the most recent floors, it's 5,000. That's pretty extreme. You'll also get knockdown from emblems. So on top of certain specialty gears, emblems, and base investment with Marks of Supremacy, this is how you will be building your knockdown for your team. So going into my top 21 preset, I have the best that I can. I do not have good ranking for this one on my main, as ranking for these can be under 6 or 7 heroes only or limited that strictly. If you're getting carried, you're just going to bring the best that you can. Do know that bosses will enter different rage modes in Tower of Toxicity, and these rage modes are activated when the boss is knocked down. These different rage modes can change minor things to the boss's action skill or kit, but usually with the power of certain heroes, a lot of these mechanics are ignorable or just bypassable by sheer damage output at this stage. So you can see my individual knockdown stats for my heroes, and this knockdown is acquired from 500 base investment here, as I've gone into 1,000 Spatak. For TOT builds specifically, you could build 1,000 into knockdown and 500 into Spatak, because the extra knockdown for TOT specific expertise builds is much stronger. I have an additional 800 from his emblem. He is a savior, so he gets double stats from emblems. A rank 5 maxed emblem will give 800 knockdown, as it's doubled from 400. So with this, Bury has 1,300 knockdown, which means he's well over 1/5 of the team's need of 5,000 for the fight. Until you're at a point where you can bring enough knockdown to carry yourself, you'll need a really hard carry from somebody with really broken units, who could pretty much just solo it themselves anyway. Once we start talking about stuff like Titanum attacking Minerval, a lot of game modes just start breaking. But anyway, a lot of times, a lot of people are only going to be wanting to do the highest level that they can do, or the newest one that they can auto, pretty much. So getting clears on old floors is not as often asked for. People are only interested in pushing the highest because it's the least amount of work. They can get the credit for everything below it by clearing the highest thing if they have good counters for it. Alright, the 2 rewards from Tower of Toxicity are the Marks of Supremacy, which will be used to increase your expertise stats, and the Shining Stone, which is how you level up emblems. You'll always need these. You think 500,000's a lot, but that's barely maxing 1 emblem. Marks, on the other hand, the currency has become irrelevant. After TOT being out this many months and people acquiring every single floor previous to the highest floor they can clear, 1 expertise page of 1 hero costs 3,200 if you push 1 stat to 1,000 and 1 to 500. But anyway, it doesn't look like this at the start, so just farm up and focus your Marks of Supremacy into those important TOT characters that are helping you with the higher floors. Let's say you get carried through TOT 18 by a couple guildies or random people in chat. Once you go in, be sure to come back here and click Receive All to receive all the floor's rewards underneath it. And unfortunately, the weekly ranking rewards are only Marks of Supremacy, so a currency that is already negligible. But I guess if you're newer and just starting and you don't have everything built, then that weekly will be a little extra bonus on top of whatever max floor you can clear. But honestly, if you could just get 1 carry through a 21 or even a 22, if you can survive it, is enough to build out most of your TOT needed heroes. All right, let's move on from TOT. Okay, second topic, EX battles. much more involved than taught. There's a whole type of hero associated with them, the lucky hero, that will commonly have direct counters to the EX mechanics. They are classified as difficult connect battle. Indeed they are, due to hero requirements. Gear requirements less so, but still present. In the EX mode, you will be battling all the normal connect bosses in a beefed up setting. EX difficulties bring new mechanics. EX battles will sometimes change a boss's elemental resistance chart, like in the case of Fenrir, who's otherwise way weaker to fire and light. Race restrictions are also very important to understand and know, even if they're not stated in the tips. Fenrir is also a case for this, where, at least in EX1, only these races are frozen, but EX2 adds a vortex, so there's certain difficulty spikes that you need to look out for, which dictate which races of heroes you're able to bring to counter it. Each EX group has a hero associated with it. You will receive some of their souls for each boss clear that you obtain in their group. So we have Winged Champion Scold, Cannon Master Cannon, Star Saint Noah, there's Star Empress Hel, and Starblade Guru Senna. Each of these heroes have some niche usage at the moment. These heroes are more like power icons at the moment until you fully awaken them. So through the EX battles, you will be able to obtain runes to awaken these heroes, although the farm is very long. Footy's a big slacker. That's the secret here, people. I have 2 6 stars of the 5. I've done what I can. I don't push EX too much because if you don't have the right hero builds yet, there is some team building that you can do to help get a certain clear, but at a certain point you have to draw the line when your account's just not ready for it. It's unhealthy to press it too much. Out of the original 5 EX reward heroes, Star Saint Noah may be the most useful for some PvE usage. Farming these heroes and max awakening them, getting them to 6 star by the means of clearing every EX of their group is a feat of power, but these heroes won't be doing that much for your account just yet. Their awakenings have effects that are only effective in Arena, Grand Arena, and Coliseum. They also may bring some hindrances, like they reduce some of your party's elemental resistances at times while buffing others. The other thing with EX content is it's time gated. All 5 groups are back for another week right after being here for a week, which is a good sign, so hopefully this starts to be more of a regular content that's more regularly farmable. It really does feel like this content can be hard to squeeze into the regular special events going on currently. It may be difficult to incorporate a lot of your time while the time is already limited, so it's a good thing for the game that it's starting to be around more often. As for every EX battle, I'm planning on releasing more content for that very soon, so stick around for that. But in the contents of this PvE endgame guide, I won't be going over every single EX battle. Alright, the next endgame PvE content in Valkyrie Connect that we're going over is 10-star battles. Just like EX, this mode is also time limited. Event-based 10-star battles will only be around for as long as the event is there. Okay, so what is the difference in a 10-star battle? Well, the only thing is it has a support lock field. Every boss on a 10-star battle will have a passive skill called Support Lock Field. This prohibits you from getting any beneficial effect and stat buff. And in order to counter that, let me introduce to you the Support Lock heroes. Okay, certain heroes have gotten their second awakenings, which is an awakening past level 26. And at awakening level 33, they hit a breakpoint where they get Resist Support Lock. Now in each one of these cases, they're usually going to affect 3 allies, which is 60% of your group. In some cases, one hero with Support Lock that covers 2 allies and themselves is enough to clear a 10-star. You can 3-man a lot of 10 stars. It's not as hard as you think. Now, if you're going to bring 2 heroes with Support Lock, you need to be sure that they do not overlap your party members if you want all 5 to be covered. So Sangrid gives 3 allies with the highest dark resistance. Celestia, in her case, gives 3 allies with the highest attack. Now, if I brought Sangrid and Celestia to the same one, those would probably overlap. Somebody with the highest dark resist would probably also be one of the top 3 attack. So there would be overlap. They wouldn't cover all 5. You have to be sure that in Osort's case, it's 3 allies with the highest light res, and these kind of things go on. Vero has 3 allies with highest HP. If you can't 3-man it, then you'll need to find a way where you can bring 2 support lock units that mesh well together and cover all 5 heroes that you need to clear the boss. Okay, so your next question is, why do I care about clearing 10 stars? And it's for the high rune drops. These high runes are used in other heroes' second awakenings. so you will effectively need as many of them as possible. Do not miss farming them when you can. And as I've said previously, when you're clearing your 10 stars, always use your drops every day for all 5 clears. As long as you're doing your 10-star clears for it first, it will take 15 drops to boost all 5 runs of it. 15 drops is a drop in the bucket, so the primary example of the use of high runes is for other second awakenables, like in the case of Blight Warp resistances. Now, I'm not going to go over this as a specific topic, but this is included in EX. These Blight Warp resistance heroes are used in the limited EX only. That being said, these units take a lot of investment, and specifically blacksmith tokens. The blacksmith tokens are going to be the first currency that cause you problems. You can overfarm high runes, like you can see I have over 400, in some cases over 1,000 of each, just holding on to them. But it's the blacksmith tokens that are the true halt to this progression. Okay, well that effectively goes over 10-star CB coverage. I won't go into more detail in an overall guide, but hopefully we start to see more relevant contents come out that have heroes that are using these second awakenings in some way. Alrighty, no camera for this segment, I'm recording a little bit later, but let's go over the Heinous battles. This is what I would consider one of the last major PvE modes for Valkyrie. This difficulty currently consists of 10 fights, and they are rather difficult. I still haven't been able to clear 2 of them, as you can see here. The difficulty of these fights are scaled from S3 to 5-star. 3-star can only be multied, 4-star can only be soloed, and you can do either for 5-star. So at this point we have 2 bosses of each element. The first one between the 2 was the one released first, which would generally be the easier fight to go for. The second generation of each element is very difficult and tuned very high. They also require very specific heroes. And final note between them is that the second generation do not have S5 difficulties yet, and oh lord, when they do come out, they'll be difficult. So from the first generation, the S3 is an accessory for these 4 races that amps your attack constants and fire amp. And a similar item will be for every element for the first boss. The S4 drops an item for the other 3 races to amp that element damage. The S5 will instead drop a high rune, which are needed for awakenings for these heroes. As the first generation have all received awakenings, you will farm the heroes' awakening runes from their 5-star for the first generation. Now, what do you need for these fights? Some of these fights may specifically be very difficult for your count depending on your hero and gear limitations, but the main gimmick to this is rather than crystals or ads in EX, there are automata, which is a being that does not have a gender or race. They can be prevented from performing their auto skill by applying the correct CC to them. If they are not CC'd for a turn in the battle, then they will activate their auto skill, which will usually make the encounter very difficult. The intent is to have all 4 of the automata CC'd with the proper counter. The main gimmick of Heinous battles are these passive skills here. Each one will have an elemental drive field that it will apply to itself. The boss will apply this elemental drive field to both themselves and all player parties. But the only way you're going to receive the benefit of the field, which increases your skill gauge upon every turn, is if you have enough of that drive support in your party, which you can acquire from specific artifacts. Now those artifacts are mostly gotten from, but not limited to, the original dragon raid battles. If you've never seen this page before, this is an original dragon raid. The artifact materials that you farm from here are actually still useful when it comes to clearing Heinous battles. So the first dragon that was introduced was the original fire dragon. And we can go into the item here and see that it has something called leaf drive support. Now these dragon artifacts are all going to have them if they're the base dragon. Another artifact group is the dread artifacts from the other dread raid, which has unfortunately not been brought back into the regular cycle. We can hope that it will be one day. But these artifacts also have a elemental drive support that will benefit your party and give your allies more skill gauge generated upon every turn. Going through my build for Magni here, my Kanoe has a Raging Frost Axe only at a 2-star, but even that, even if it's a 1-star, it still gives the full drive support percentage that the item would even at a 1-star. So she gives 15% by herself with Dat Axe. Sigurd, I have my 3-star gauntlet, which is giving him 6%. Some artifacts will give more than others, so this sword on Roveria gives an extra 10%. So the more you stack your flame drive support, you can get more skill gauge and make the fight a lot easier for yourself. The Heinous battles really just come down to having enough flame drive support with the proper artifacts. Alright, well I'll let my new collab girl home screen cycle through while I talk about one of the last PvE modes, which is Heroic Wanderer. I don't have any footage of it. It's a very time-gated event right now, and it's very end game. Ateam is releasing it so difficult that they don't even really expect but a handful of people to be able to full clear everything. Kind of a little bit too ridiculously tuned in my opinion, but what does that matter? Just know that in that mode, Every single aspect that has pushed players' accounts to their limits is tested in that mode. You need to have the best gears, the best emblems, the best heroes, and in high quantity of them. It's one of the first modes where you need 15 heroes, and once you pick 5 to bring to the fight, those heroes and the gear that is equipped on them is not usable for the other 2 fights and the other 10 heroes that have to go into them. Very unique and interesting and a good mechanic, but it makes the mode extremely difficult, especially since you're needing like upwards of 7 to 10 of a certain high field resistance. People may have just gone through and sold down their high Nyet rings or high Senior, and now they're left with not enough to be able to clear a boss. Anyway, I'll be able to expand on Heroic Wanderer next time it comes out. I will be pushing it extremely hard. Some of my guildies have pushed a little bit more than I have, and I definitely want to get into it more because I think my account's in a much better place than the past 2 events. All right, well, I appreciate you so much for coming along on this PvE guide, and I hope you learned a little bit about the endgame Valkyrie PvE content and what it has to offer you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I have a lot of new videos on the plate, so once again, thank you. And hopefully I'll see you next time. But until then, Foot's out. Cheers.